morning and welcome back to World Talks, coming to you live from Warsaw. I'm Sadia Strzemska. It was in 1959 that the UN General Assembly took an important step in advocating for children by adopting the Declaration of the Rights of the Child. This commitment was further solidified in 1989 with the Convention on the Rights of the Child, marking the first international treaty to recognize children not only as dependents, but as individuals with inherent rights. However, the journey began earlier in 1954, when the UN first proposed the establishment of a national day dedicated to promoting children's rights. In Poland, Children's Day is celebrated on June 1st today. I am joined now by Dana Patricia Novăcescu, co-author at Bucharest EU Children's Declaration, to talk about the current state of children's rights both in Poland and globally. Good morning, Dana. Delighted to have you with us.
Good morning. I'm also delighted to be invited at your show.
So before we sort of move on to discussing all these legislative frameworks, June 1st marks the Children's Day here in Poland. However, in other parts of the world, it is November 20th, if I'm not mistaken. And also Ukraine has decided to switch from June 1st to November. So what is the logic here? Why this discrepancy?
So, as you said, the Convention on the Rights of the Child was also adopted on the 20th November in 1989. So that's why, for example, on the 20th of November, we celebrate the World Children's Day, and also UN and UNICEF, the agency that supports children's rights and works for children's rights, for example, celebrates International Children's Day on the 20th of November. But a lot of countries and most of the European countries celebrate International Children's Day on the 1st of June, and we can celebrate it in both of the days. It's just a matter of choice of each country.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, I mean, apparently...
For example, in Romania, we also celebrate it today.
Okay. Because, I mean, I've heard that it's perhaps in, post-communist countries that, post-Soviet, it will be June 1st. But I guess, we'll have to read about this a little bit more. But what I wanted to ask you about is the Bucharest Declaration, right? It was adopted in May of 2019, and it was proposed by children from across the EU. So what was the point here? Why was the legislation that was in place then not sufficient?
So it's 35 years, and at the end of this year, it's going to be 36 years since all of the EU countries adopted the Convention on the Children's Rights. And in this convention, and also in the EU Treaty on Fundamental Rights, there is an article, and in the convention it's Article 12, that states that all children have the right to be consulted and heard on their opinions on matters that affect their lives directly, in accordance with their capacity to understand those issues and how those issues influence their lives. And of course, now, as we think, 1 out of 5 the child, 30% of the EU population is composed by children and young people. And in 2019, and also now, a lot of EU member states didn't transfer this Article 12 into their national legislation, and there is no concrete mechanism in place that can approve children's opinions and also offer consultation on their opinions on topics that affect their lives, such as education, such as family matters, jobs, skills, personal development, and so on. So we really needed a declaration to state that there is the need for this right to be implemented at the local level, at the regional level, and also at the European level.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. And I mean, holistically, how would you gauge the sort of, the state of legislation that is in place to protect children's rights? What needs to be done?
First of all, there are no clear mechanism to see how correctly children's rights are improved, and how are they really respected in every member country. There is no mechanism to see if in Romania, for example, children's rights are respected in a very high percent, or for example, if in Netherlands there is an issue right now. There are no clear mechanisms to see how they are implemented or respected. And this is, for example, one thing that we were asking through our declarations, that we need to create a legislative framework that helps all the children's rights experts and all the social workers to report to the national countries and to the parliament and to the government how the children's rights are respected in every member country. But also there is a very big problem at the local level, because of course we have national reports, but we don't know what the exact situation is, for example, in a small village or a small community from our countries.
Okay, so what are some of the common problems faced by children globally?
If we, for example, right now think we have the most clear problem right now that is happening in Gaza and in Ukraine, in which children don't have access to water, don't have access to food. And of course, we know the atrocities that are happening both in Gaza and both in Ukraine. And we have all these international treaties and the international law that, of course, is in place to protect them and help them and assure that they have the right to live in a safe world where they have access to health, to education, and to the resources they need to grow peacefully. But as we can see, unfortunately, because of this political insecurities and different political agendas, it's not respected. Even though if we have in place all these international treaties and all the international law. And right now, there are thousands of children that were killed in the airstrikes that are suffering. And as I read these days, in Gaza, 100% of the population is suffering from famine, which obviously includes also the children. I read that 600,000 of children were displaced, and they don't have access to any kind of education, to any kind of home to be protected. And also in Ukraine, there were thousands of people, and there are thousands of children who were displaced from their families and kidnapped and sent in other countries, which of course it's a terrible situation for the children's rights worldwide.
Right. I mean, so what is the value of all these, resolutions and frameworks if there's, no executive power behind them?
Well, of course, as it's in international law and conventions coming from the UN, there is, of course, the obligation of each member state to respect them. And if not, they will face the consequences in international court. But of course, it is very difficult in such situations to actually ensure that the countries fully and rightfully respect them. And of course, there is, as in any law, there is a social contract between the people who decide to respect this law and the state and the government. And unfortunately, it comes to the people and to the authorities and to the judiciary bodies to really enforce them and to respect them. But in situations as military conflict and war, we can see that unfortunately it loses its power, and it all comes down to the political will in those countries.
Right, of course. And in some countries, definitely the political will is lacking. We know that, some leaders are even wanted by the ICC and it does not work, right? I mean, it is not being respected. But leaving the conflict zones aside and looking at Europe, what about children in Europe? What is the biggest challenge that they're facing? Is there an issue, for instance, perhaps with mental health?
We could see that currently, because of all the digital developments and all the anxiety that is created in the world, starting from the pandemic, from COVID-19, we saw a rapid involvement of issues facing mental health for children. And of course, with all the multi-crises that are facing right now, it creates a lot of anxiety for children. And I think that the mental health problems really increased in the last years. And we can also see that due to the rapid evolvement of digital platforms and digital technologies that really are differently shaping our society and how our society is convening with each other and interacting with each other, and especially the most affected are the children, because they are the ones using these technologies firsthand, and they are stuck in this digital world that is completely affecting their understanding of social behavior, their understanding of social interactions, and also most of the times it creates like a bubble in which they are trapped inside of this technological and digital spaces.
Right, and Dana, what is the current state of discussion when it comes to improving either international law or perhaps introducing some new initiatives to improve the lives of children? What are some of the ideas being floated at the moment in your surrounding?
Right. So, as I can see from 2019, unfortunately, children's rights are not really on the agenda anymore. In Romania, while it held the presidency of the Council of the European Union, children's rights were really on the agenda. And we were trying to push for the improvement of their right to participate in the decision-making process and to shape their policies that affect their lives and the education and family. But right now, unfortunately, I saw that there is a decrease in the importance that is given to the enhancement and to the raising awareness for children's rights. Instead, right now, on the political agenda, the priorities are enhancing the compatibility and, of course, security of the European Union, which unfortunately is a minus for children's rights and the right to development and educational rights.
Mm-hmm. Right, and what about the civil society? Can we do anything? Perhaps some grassroots initiatives?
Of course. I think in this situation and in this time, civil society is very important and is mostly the most influential factor that actually can raise the voice and raise awareness on the fact that children's rights are losing from its importance on the international stage. Like grassroots initiatives, of course, everyone can involve themselves in a local NGO that is promoting children's rights or working directly with the UNICEF agencies in their countries, because there are a lot of smaller agencies from UNICEF that is the main body working for children's rights around the world. And you can always volunteer and go to protests. I think protests are one of the easiest way to participate at the grassroots level, because there you attract attention and you can actually raise your voice and raise awareness. But of course, volunteering in children's rights organization is the most important from my perspective, and it's very easily to find one. There are many.
Dana Patricia Novăcescu, thank you so much for being with us this morning. And let's hope that the state of children's rights will indeed improve, if not in the near future, then down the line. Thank you so much. Have a good day. And thank you for watching World Talks. Please stay tuned for more here on TVP World.